I'm Patric. I will be your host, moderator for this conversation. We will kick it off, but before we kick it off, we will do like a pre-kickoff by just doing the quick mandatory round of like name and like naming what you do. So we have a for the ones who haven't read the profiles beforehand. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. My name is Lee. About 10 years of experience in the gaming industry and been mostly working as a producer.
I'm Daniel. I'm at MAG Interactive as a product lead there. Been at MAG for 6 years, but working in the industry since 11 years now, I think. And before that, I was studying here at Gotland, so nice to be back.
My name is Pelle. I teach game design and project management here at the Department of Game Design.
Yeah, my name is Pontus. I'm a student here, previous student here, and I work for a company called 10 Star Simulation, where I'm the team lead and product manager. We do education-based simulation tools for a bunch of different industries.
And I'm Patric. Work with helping game production for the last 20 years, mostly through tools, but also coaching. Favro is my day-to-day job, also known as the fresh alternative to Jira. But I'm also a game investor, so I had a fantastic privilege this morning to sit on another panel with listening to the amazing teams here pitching the games. That was a lot of fun. And, so I feel quite full of energy here for the afternoon. And maybe not all of you do, because the ones who've been sitting here for a long time, it's pretty hot in here, so we try to keep windows open and all of that. And with that said, I would like to suggest a little check-in exercise. How do you feel about it?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Normally when I discuss production, not directly with customers, I run a podcast called Learn from Leaders. And I always do this little exercise, like a conscious breathing exercise beforehand, just to kind of get a little bit into the mood and zone in on a conversation. So I would like to do that. Would you like to join me in this breathing exercise?
Of course. Of course.
In the audience, you're welcome to join us if you want.
You better.
So, I would suggest we do 5 conscious breaths. All right? I will lead. So we breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Through the nose. Now we say ah, we breathe out. Ah. In through the nose. Now we say oh. And in through the nose. And then say whatever we want. Okay. What is production?
Oi.
You want to start, Lee? And to frame it, I mean, what do you include in it? What's not in it?
Oh Jesus, what is production? I don't know. It's a hard question to answer, but I would say like what I think is most important for production, or in the projects I've been, is bringing clarity to my team and to everyone else involved. So we are going towards the same goal, and there should be no questions what will happen in the upcoming time. So so I think that is my answer.
So what's the follow?
You're starting off easy here with what is production. I'm thinking that everything that is, you have the product and everything that is around the product. I mean, you have a development team doing the things, but then you also have all the other things tying into it. And I mean, looking from where I work, we have a business intelligence team, we have the marketing team. I think all of this tie into the production process in one way or another, kind of form the product in the end.
So I'm going to hold with you for a second. Don't worry, we're going to get to you as well. Working with this for a while, what's been the biggest crossroad in your career?
Well, biggest crossroad in my career. I mean, I actually started off with art here at Gotland. I was not very good at it, I couldn't draw, so I stopped doing that and focused more on game design and project management. So over time, I grew into more project, more product, and working with that. So for me, the crossroad in my career was actually when, okay, do you want to take the step from doing like design, programming, these things, or work more with product and people instead? And I chose product and work with people, and that's what I wanna do. It's super exciting, and there's so much I feel that I can learn there, and that's why I also want to do this, to talk with all of you and learn more. So.
Do you regret it?
No.
Are you sure?
I'm very sure. I still tinker a bit with other things, but yeah.
What's hardest, people or technology?
I should answer people, right? No, it's. I think both are hard in different ways, but I enjoy working with people the most. I think so. That's where I put my focus. So.
In the previous panel, they mentioned systems thinking, and if we actually think about it, the system of people and how people work together is often much more complex than technology. So.
Oh yeah, of course, and I mean it depends on where you're at, what the company is, what the company culture is at. I mean how well people are actually communicating just by themselves. So if you don't have a good culture where people are communicating, people will be the biggest issue. But maybe they're good at that inherently, so maybe tech is more troublesome.
So, again, don't worry, we'll get there. Going back to you, Lee. So, crossroads. What was the biggest crossroads in your career?
I think it was when I worked in Amsterdam for 2.5 years as a QA analyst and a QA automation engineer. And then COVID hit and I moved home. And I applied for jobs, of course, here in Sweden. And I got the opportunity to work either with Tokaboka as a continued QA analyst, or join a person who had moved home from USA and worked on Riot for 7 years, and he wanted to start his own outsourcing studio. And he needed someone who knew how to start a business and everything like that, a producer and company manager, basically. So I went that way. And yeah, I don't regret it because it taught me so many valuable insights and lessons and everything about scaling and building a company. So yeah, we scaled that from 2 people to 109, and then right now I'm looking for new opportunities. Yeah.
What's in the water with Riot? I mean, the reason I'm asking is because so many successful startups tend to have people that have that background.
Yeah, like, I don't know, I just know this person. He's just a true workaholic, basically. He worked 16 hours a day, and I didn't want to do that, so I kept myself to 8 healthy hours. And I don't know, I think it's just, you have to have a certain drive and ambition, maybe to get into Riot and have that quality bar. And that also comes with a lot of work. So I think that's more important.
We might want to come back to that actually.
Yeah.
But we need to get to you guys. So crossroads in your life. Do you think you have had your biggest crossroad in your career yet, or is it yet to come?
No. I mean, for me, the biggest crossroad was probably, making the uncomfortable choice of moving somewhere. Like constantly, like either it was to get education or now where I currently work. It's always like to choose comfort, or like to not choose comfort and instead just move somewhere, try something new, be uncomfortable for a long time and kind of adjust to that. And I feel like in today's society that's kind of something that you sign up to. And I feel like, the upcoming crossroads would probably be even bigger than that. But to just embrace the kind of uncertainty, I think, it's a good process and something that I really value.
So finally, Pelle, biggest crossroads for you?
Biggest crossroads, I hope, is still to come. But I think
I was
this.
hoping someone would say that.
No, I think so. I mean, I barely started working in any type of career in the past year, and it's in academia, which is great. But it's also a little bit like choosing comfort. Also, I came here as a student in 2018, kind of from the opposite direction that you came. Like, oh, I really want to work with games. I can't code, I can't draw, I haven't really done any design work, but I do have experience with working in teams and being sort of team leader. And then I had my eyes on this education for years, being curious at it, but back in the day you could only do programming or graphics. And then all of a sudden there was a project management. Now that I can do. So that was going to be my way into the game industry. So I'm still on sort of that path, but then I realized also I love working with people, I love teaching, and I've had so much fun and learned so much during the education. So started working as a teaching assistant, then a course assistant, and now I'm a lecturer at the department. And that feels really good, but I also feel like the adventure in the wider game industry that connects all of this, communities, the industry, academia, research, all of that is sort of the big crossroads is still up there. So far, the biggest crossroad was to actually leave Uppsala, where I had lived for 10 years, and then move here and leave everything behind and give up on my previous ambitions to, study political science and go to the UN and the EU and save the world. Super interesting subjects, wasn't really me, and then give up on my brilliant acting career that I was going to have as well. So I was sort of torn between this academic path and this creative path. And I found them sort of united here on the island. So that's actually just getting into deciding to dedicate myself to games and game development. That is the biggest crossroads so far.
But you have
quite late in life.
You have so many of the student teams you could potentially join. You know, this morning when I was listening to all these pitches, I was feeling a little bit jealous. I was like, oh, I also want to be in one of those teams. And do you feel that sometimes yourself? Like, oh,
all the time. And it's like, well, yes, I'm their teacher. There's that responsibility, and I can't really. I can work with them and coach them and help them, but I would really like to work on their game as well. Well, maybe when they graduate. And in the future, I'm hoping to meet up with a lot of my former students and be colleagues with them in the future. So I'm really looking forward to that.
So what you're teaching is a great segue to how I would like to just frame the conversation a bit. Because if I go back, let's say 10 minutes, maybe 50 years ago, and talking to a team that was, people that were spinning out of a bigger studio, starting their own company, or alternatively, a team of students starting a company. It was all about the game. It was a game they wanted to make, and production was almost like a bad word. It was like that's kind of big corp. We don't want to deal with that. It was very often quite chaotic on that side. And I don't know if any have seen, the old movie In the Game, which is kind of like documenting the first wave of indie game success. And there's one scene, where there are only 3 people, but they still managed to absolutely mess up production. It's like, there's crunch, there's post-close all over the place, and then there's this program where it's like, no, I lost the post-it note, I don't know what to do. And things have changed so much since then. Very often now when I meet a team, they often talk about, still of course, the game they want to make, the game with the big G, but also they talk a lot about the company they want to build. The culture they want to build, what kind of company, what kind of culture do we want to create? So it's a big difference. Another big difference is, what you're representing. I mean, now you're actually teaching, production management. I noticed that you're teaching, agile practices, which is great because, to be honest, most big established studios still suck at that 10 years later. We talked about that 10 years ago at conferences, 15 years ago at conferences. It still moved quite slow, I would say. So the fact that we're teaching the new generation better practices, that is definitely a step forward. So with that said, I would like to go back a little bit to the question that I started with, what is production? And get your perspectives on, so far in your career, what has changed? If you look a little bit from your point of view, what has changed with how we think about production? What is production? What are the practices, or has nothing changed? Who wants to go first?
I feel like production is the process of turning like a vision into an experience, and it encapsulates so much within that, because it's like the people within the team have one vision of what they want, and then you have the stakeholders who have another, and then the road to kind of align those visions and to actually produce the experience. It's a path that can be taken in so many different ways, and it requires like collaboration and also like a common understanding, and also to kind of see all of the roads that you shouldn't take, and the things that like to manage the expectations. There's so much things that goes into the production that the result is hard to kind of plan, but as a team lead, as a producer within those roles, it's like your role to manage expectations as much as like the actual production cycles.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, definitely, communication, manage expectations, yes, leading the vision forward is so important in the roles that we have. But I think to me it boils down to a healthy work-life balance in the end, because that's not something that's always been a case within the game industry. And I feel that it's gotten so much better over the years that you are expected to have actually, work and then have a life on the side, and that should be properly managed. And that's part of our responsibility to make sure that the people that we work with, can have that. You don't want to have you sit and work 20 hours a day just to make a game. That's ridiculous. So that's to me super
So
important.
have we actually got better at that? Or would we like to think we got better at that? Or are we still finishing the game by crunch kind of methodology?
I wouldn't say that all companies are better at it. I don't know myself, but from my experience, I've come across super healthy companies that actually care about the employees and be like, okay, we need to do this in a manageable way that we can do forever, basically, and not burn out people working.
I think also there's a lot of new studios opening, and they already have that mindset, which I think is really good, because there are, older companies that are kind of in the old ways of doing things. But then there are people leaving those older companies, starting their own new studios, and they have this new mindset of like 6-hour workdays and healthy culture. And I think we're on our way. But I also agree with you that there are companies that are still in the old ways.
We're not there yet.
No.
But that makes me really happy to hear, because we lean into that a lot in the education, trying to emphasize the downsides of crunch and the importance of sustainable development and a healthy work structure and a healthy work plan as well. And I still hear some voices saying, like, if you're going to start your own, you're going to work in games and be an entrepreneur, you have to work 60 hours a week for the rest of your life or for 2 years. And I'm like, okay, but why is that? Well, do you have the deliveries and the milestones, and crunch is inherent, and yes, but isn't that kind of because that is sort of the mindset we have right now and the image we have of the game industry, that's what it's supposed to be. It's still a quite young, relatively young industry compared to others. And where else to start changing that mindset but in the education? So that's where we really try to do that, and that makes me really happy to hear that has an effect, that more new teams actually go into the industry with that mindset as well. Yeah. Not to say that it's easy to just decide not to do it, but I think that's important. So it's nice to hear that.
Yeah, and I also think like the new studios and everything, they really have grasped the importance of quality planning. Because I usually say like crunch is just a result of bad planning, and if you just plan accordingly, you shouldn't have any crunch, and you can do like 6-hour work days and actually just
If you do crunch and end up in those situations a lot, you're not doing your job properly.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about production practices specifically there. So what is actually good practices, what's bad practices, and then we can come back to what anti-patterns do we still have and we want to get rid of, so forth. But I would love to just get your perspectives on, you can just do a little bit like top No, bad, good. Where I start?
Oh wow.
It doesn't have to be a complete coverage.
Not a
of
complete.
the state
Okay,
of the
are we going to
industry.
start with the bad or the good?
Start with the bad.
Start with the bad. Oh, I'm speechless. Doesn't happen often. Help me out here.
I don't know. I think just forcing tasks or like production methodologies that aren't communicated with the team. That you just do this, just do what I say, is never a good thing. I think it's very important to really connect with your team, have a friendly relationship with them, and listen to them and how they want to work. And then it's your job to try and make that good for them.
Yeah, what I also try to do is try to give like ownership.
Yeah.
And really emphasize that.
Yes.
So say like your role and what you currently are responsible for in this project is like it's up to you to make sure that we are aligned with our like estimated deadlines, and then they will continuously update me on how they think they're doing, and that gives me like, even though I might be like responsible for the end result, it still gives them like some tools to kind of inform me on how they're doing, but also that kind of ownership of the task I think is super important, because it also makes them see like the value that they add to each of the projects.
What I see in student projects is very much also relates to this, and there's an apprehension sometimes to following a certain process or aligning those visions of, okay, where are we going and what way are we going to go about it and why? Okay, we're going to follow this production practice, but why are we doing that? It's not always clear, and there's all very often a feeling of like, well, we just need to start getting this done, and we'll talk about planning the rest of it next week and next week and next week, and then it goes in 5 different directions because you have 5 people on the team, yeah, I think it has a lot to do with that, communicating. Okay, why are we following this plan, and why are we doing it this process? What is the value of this, and what will we learn from this, and what are the pitfalls of not? And the process doesn't have to be identical to each team, because teams are not identical. Teams are different, and their projects look different, have different needs. And we try to really, especially early, teaching them agile practices, Scrum in particular. Which comes with a couple of like foundational stuff, like, okay, but have regular stand-ups and check-ins, and check in with the project. What has everyone done? Where are we? Align where everyone is right now and where we're going. And like you ask them when you check in. So have you done your stand-ups this week? Like, no. Okay, why not? Well, we didn't feel we needed to. And then they haven't spoken to each other for 4 or 5 days. And then, of course, the vision has gone quite in opposite directions. So I think we as teachers also need to be better at sort of explaining, okay, why are we doing this, and what is the importance of actually doing this, and making sure that that this becomes obvious when they work practically, because that's when they usually see also what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and I was just gonna like, it's also very important when working with stakeholders that you have a good communication with the stakeholder, and never like, because I've been in this experience before, that someone who is handling that communication just says yes all the time, yes, yeah, sure, we can do that, yeah, sure. And that is not very good in my opinion. You just have to communicate that, yes, okay, but you have to realize we have to cut this, or we have to prioritize this, and just that is very clear, and you should never just like, yeah, sure, because it's the stakeholder. You have to be clear and transparent.
That's when you're up in the situations where you have to, work overtime, just disappoint people.
Exactly.
Yeah, and sometimes the stakeholders will offer a solution to a problem they don't really understand.
Yes.
And that's where you need to think about what are they actually trying to solve here. And then sometimes we have to use our experience to kind of find a solution and suggest that for them, and just kind of, that's like when you understand specifications of what they're trying to get, sometimes you have to understand what they're actually trying to experience rather than what they're saying that they want. And with that, like, I think that's where a lot of game practices comes into play as well.
All right, so let's talk a little bit, we call producers because we took that from the film industry. And there's, that role in film can be a couple of different things. It can be very different kinds of producers, all the way from the ones making sure that there's money raised to the ones making sure that the logistics on set works, to the one working very close with the director, so it's more of a creative counterpart, so to say. What's really producing in game development? How would you define it? Anyone dares?
I would like to know.
You're on camera.
They're so different from company to company, I think.
Yeah.
But there are some similarities, I guess, of like having just the overseeing the planning, the budget, staffing, also taking care of the backlog, the different teams, but also like putting out fires wherever they come up and just solving problems all day long. I think it's mostly there.
Yeah, I mean, at MAG, the role I have there is, definitely, being ensure that we have a vision moving forward. Not necessarily me that needs to have the vision, but I need to ensure that we have a vision that we can actually move towards all the time. And also ensure that communication within the team and with other teams is functional, because otherwise we can't execute on the vision at all. And then we're going to come down to the things of managing the backlog, ensure we have all the daily stand-ups, the sprint planning that can actually help us move forward. But it's all of this that kind of facilitate the needs of the team and support them in whatever way we can, because they will build the game in the end. So we're there to help.
Yeah, we're not super good at defining actually the producer as a term at all during education. For that reason, it's very hard, because it's hard even in the industry. But I would agree. It becomes, we have project management. That's a subject that we sort of understand and can teach, and it draws on different theories. There's agile and there's traditional waterfall project management, and that includes also leadership, and that's a whole separate module of that. Okay, how do you foster good team dynamics? How do you develop as a good team member? How do you develop leadership skills? All of that part. But I would agree very much that the role is important to sort of create this framework and structure and direction that allows the team members to, in the best and easiest, most frictionless way, do the job that they're really good at and really love doing.
So let me share a reflection from our podcast. So I had Ben and Aaron from another podcast, which I believe is even though I have my own, I would say this is still the best podcast for production, which is called the Build Better Games podcast. Highly recommended for everyone interested. And one thing we were talking about there, and they have addressed this many times in their podcast, is that there's this, and especially now when there's been a bit of bad times, there's been a gravitation back to old practices, unfortunately, and where things becomes basically taskmasters of a pile of Jira tickets instead of really being facilitators of what needs to happen in the teams. It's much more of a leadership thing. What do you, apart from educating students so we're getting better talent into the market, what else do you think can be done to make us in the industry move a little bit faster? Because there are, I would say, many people right now being quite frustrated that we are, not only have we been moving relatively slow forward in our production practices in game development compared to other tech industries. I can, for example, if I look at the team in, let's say, SaaS of the last 10 years, and what was their development process 10 years ago, and how has it developed, a lot have happened. A lot have happened with Agile. What was trending within Agile practices 10 years ago is not the same today. There has been evolution, but so much has been standing still in the game industry, and now when there's been so many layoffs, there's been this, well, mostly with more established studios, but there has been almost a gravitation backwards. So how can we break this negative pattern? You know, if you agree, of course. How do we disrupt ourselves?
I mean, then we need people to speak up against this and try to push the direction. And I think I see daily so many people, especially on LinkedIn, that just kind of tries to support people and actually make things better. And it's so great to see that these people exist, that they really care and they want to make it better for all of us that works with games. But that also means that we need more people that do this. And it's not easy to kind of show yourself in that sense and push for improvement. That is so difficult. But I'm so grateful for the people that are doing it.
More suggestions?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we are on like the elephant in the room, the AI thing. I think a lot of companies are trying to incorporate it, are already doing so. And but there's also like a big discussion about it. But I think there are tools that we can use as like a great benefit in production-wise to make it more easily, just like notes, for instance, having a summary of a meeting just by talking, and then you can press a button and get a summary of breakpoints and action points. So yeah, I think that's one good way.
Yeah, I think like you were talking about, offering the opportunities for people to speak up, and even though you see things on LinkedIn, I also think it's important to foster that culture within companies. So you allow the employees to say how we can improve the different processes, what is working, what is not working, because sometimes you get too locked into like a framework and you think that this is exactly how things needs to be done. But part of like the agile environment is also you have to be adaptable to the teams. Even as like producer and team leads, I see what does the team need. And that can be done by, fostering that kind of culture, I believe.
So you touched upon one important trend, AI. I will bring up another one, which is very related to production, which is hybrid work. So what's your take on it right now? Back to office, fully remote, hybrid, and where do you think we'll be going? You want to go first?
Absolutely. I mean, from a personal perspective, I prefer working from an office, but that's because it works for me as an individual. But I can really see the benefit of at least having a more hybrid approach, because I can see that I have colleagues that benefit a lot from this. They feel better and they can manage their lives in a much better way. I haven't myself had any experience with completely remote being just super positive for everyone, so I can't push for that myself because I need the office environment. But definitely hybrid, I can see how it affects so many people in such a good way.
More views on that?
Yeah, no, going completely remote during the pandemic was awful for education in many ways. Many students loved it. I bet many teachers did as well. But it really made the quality of at least our education suffer temporarily. But I also think that COVID taught us that there are actually these hybrid alternatives that can be can have a net positive effect across the board. And I think that is also one way of making the work schedule more flexible, and just being able to work from home 1 or 2 days a week if you have a family can be incredibly beneficial, and actually maintain or increase your productivity as well when you're actually if you have a good home office. So that's sort of the vibe I get from the industry as well, is that the hybrid works really well. Otherwise, I am personally very much a proponent of the working together for efficiency of communication becomes so much better, and for creative exchange, it's also very good to sort of be in the same room in a creative environment and create together.
But it's, I mean, definitely depending on the people there.
Yeah.
So I would love for people that want to work fully remote, that they have this opportunity, that there are companies that do that in a really good way, and that opportunity is out there. because we are all different in that way. So
Does that require other types of sort of production practices or management structures, do you think?
I would say yes.
probably.
So we at Favor we are remote first, so it doesn't mean that we don't meet, but we do, instead of the typical off-site, we do on-site. So we do have 2 offices, one in Sweden, one in Lithuania, and then we get into the office on a regular basis. But what I would say is my own experience, both with Favor and my previous company, but also what I've seen with our customers or companies I invested in, is that you really need to design for it. Because if you have, and this is why I think the companies struggling most with this are studios that have been around for a while, where this became a compromise. So we want to be in the office, but we can't, or management said we can't. So it's constantly a compromise. But if you design for it from the beginning, then it's a different thing. So now, what does that mean in practice? Well, firstly, a lot of your first, you need to really optimize for asynchronous communication, because you can't do the whole like, hey, just walk over and knock on the shoulder, or there's no water cooler conversations. But a lot of people actually prefer this, because when it comes to focused work, and a lot of people in game development are doing stuff where focused work is important, and that's actually much easier when you have a remote first environment. And then you need to think about cadence. So you can't, as a leader, you can't be just like, okay, whenever we need to make a management decision, I'm just going to pull everyone into the room. You need to think like, what's actually our cadence in this company, and that's something that bigger companies sometimes think a lot about, because they have to manage scale. But I think the difference is that even as a startup, you need to have that into account. I also think it affects which people you recruit. Because if you recruit someone who says, yeah, it's awesome to work remote first because I can be home more with my kids, but actually they would suffer, it's not a great thing. So you need to think about it from kind of more the profiles. And I can keep going on for a long time about that.
No, but I'm glad you said that, because that also gives nuance to what I said about the education, the quality of education suffering from COVID was for that very reason. It's this big structure, and we're used to doing something a certain way and then transitioning to doing it another way. I would say now we're much better set up to do also hybrid education to some extent. So yes.
I mean, even after work is affected. In our team, there's no point to like, hey, Friday after work beer for 2 reasons. No one is there. I'm going to do it by Zoom, and 2, most people in my team actually don't drink for various reasons. So we do after work gaming. Kind of fits quite nicely when you work so much with game companies. So we have made that a thing. We have a competitive team. We have casual, etc. So that's like a thing. That's how we organize our after work. But that of course means that, one of the good things with that is that we can recruit people that are not going to feel like they're an outsider just because they are, living somewhere else, or because they don't want to go for after work beer. It can actually be much more inclusive also in a way. So there are many opportunities there. I'm going to open up for questions in a second, and you can just shout out, or raise your hand first, but you can shout out a question. I'm going to repeat it so we get it on mic. But while you think about that, I'm going to throw in another question here, which is, what do you think will change the coming 5 years? If we sit here together again in 5 years and have this panel and we talk about what has become better or worse when it comes to production practices, what do you think we will say?
No, I really hope that we will say that we actually could figure out ways of creating more sustainable development practices and fight against sort of crunch culture, which I think we're already well on our way doing.
Since a lot of companies, since we are doing this whole hybrid and fully remote setups nowadays, and there are so many people that want to keep working with it, I'm really hoping that there are going to be so much better tools out there in 5 years that's going to support everyone, even if you work in the office or work from home. That's kind of, you can utilize the tech in a much different way, because we always make improvements in the tech space. So I think there's so much more to to have there that could facilitate this?
Yeah, I don't know what we were talking about before, that more and more people just start speak up. I think that is a nice like culture thing that I think is very important in companies, that they should speak up when they think something is wrong, because it's not like when as a producer you can be blind sometimes and you can completely forget and miss things production-wise. So I think just that cultural thing, that people should feel comfortable of speaking up when they see something wrong or ineffective.
Yeah, I think all of these things that we've been discussing, but I also think something that might be more common is that people who work more like all over the world, and maybe we get more like international companies in that sense, where since we're not as bound to places anymore, and if we like get the tools to actually communicate more efficiently, and yeah, that will allow also people from all over the world in all kinds of cultures to kind of come together. And I think the game production space is one of those things that I think having people from different parts of life all across the world will just make the kind of process even better. It might be harder, but I think the end result will also maybe cater to a wider audience. So with the right tools, I think we will be able to make the spaces between the employees across the world more tighter.
Let's see if we have any questions. All right. Oh wow. Okay. I think you were first.
I remember you said to me about like balancing being a friend for your team and like a manager. And right now, as we're students, that's a bit especially difficult. And I mean, it sounds funny, but like at some point you pursue governments.
Yeah.
But how do you do that at the workplace? Like, what is the middle thing?
I'm just going to repeat the question here. So the question is the balance between kind of like, well, as a manager, balancing, friend, colleague. If I understood you right there.
Yeah. No, I think it's just important that you communicate. Like, for instance, maybe I have to put my foot down or whatever. It's very important that they have understanding of the planning. That we are both like, okay, maybe you need 2 weeks more for this to make this model. That's fine. Let's prioritize. Let's look at the planning. Let's look at the backlog. What can we move or what can we remove to make this work? Instead of just, hey, make it work, or just, hey, you just have this time, just do it. That doesn't bring any positive in any way. So you just have to like try and meet in the middle ground. How can we work it out together as a team, and how can we reach the best result together, and really try to be as a supporting team member as possible.
If I could add something there, I mean, there's so many companies that seem to frame themselves as a family, which is also kind of, that's not necessarily great. I mean, you're there it's a professional environment, as of course you should be civil to each other, you should be able to be friends and everything, but you're not a family, because at the end of the day, it's a business where people might be let go at some point, and that doesn't work well with the word family.
No.
So the whole thing there as well, it's supposed to be, I mean, it's a work environment, so, and we should treat it like it.
Yeah, exactly. When you're working, you are like professional, 100% professional. And then when work is done, you can play games or whatever and have that friend relationship.
I want to chime in on that. For anyone who's a student, if someone's trying to recruit you and say, we are a family, I mean, big red flag. But it also doesn't have to be like dog eat dog or cutthroat. Think about it as a sports team. If you think about a team in NHL, you're playing at the absolute top, and the challenging thing, but also the cool thing, making games is of course that you have a global market. It also means you have global competition. You're competing with everyone out there who makes a game. It's really tough. So think about it as kind of like a sports team. I want to add one. I did reference the Building Better Games podcast before. I'm not having any commission from them. But Ben from that podcast, he did an absolutely amazing talk at GDC this year about accountability. I think it might be online. Worst case, it's in the vault, so it's behind a paywall. But if you get a chance to watch that talk, it is absolutely amazing. It answers so many questions around exactly how to handle one of the hardest questions as a leader, which is how you actually hold people accountable, and with a very nice framework for how to do that. And that framework works the other way up. Also works upwards and sideways. Okay, there were many hats. So I think that one of you went next. I don't know who was first.
Oh, I have a few, but like I guess I'm gonna pick one. You were talking about crunch and like that he was getting better. From my experience, I feel like that he was getting better mainly from the like already worked in developer side, because like they already see like the damage and or they go through it and whatnot. But from the student perspective, I'm more heard like people kind of still taking him lightly and like joking about it. So do you have any ideas like how to like shift people's mindset already like when they're studying rather than like after they get to the industry itself?
Trying to think how I'm gonna rephrase that. But okay, mindset around crunch. I just say that and we go around.
Yeah, no, I think, or from my experience, also when being a student here, was like when you're a student, you have the tendency to overscope a lot, and then you learn that lesson, and you go and you scope it down, and you actually like get better at it. And I think like I hope other companies also has learned that lesson, so it shouldn't be any. So they shouldn't be crunching, but it's also like you learn all the time on how long things can take. Like if you're gonna do like you're gonna model a ship, and you don't have never modeled a ship, you have no idea. You have to do a guesstimate, and then you can do that, and then when the ship is done, you have learned how long it takes, and you kind of just get better at estimating with your producer or manager. So yeah, I think it's just a thing that you as a student, it's very.
You have to follow him.
Yeah.
Exactly. And on that note, I also think that like making sure that you know what the minimal viable product is, really defining that, and then you can go like, okay, if we have more time, what do we want to do? And that's when you put all of the sprinkling on top and all of the fun things, like the extra things that are more like experiential. And perhaps it's also easier if you know that you're kind of digging through to get that core out, and then to just add a flavor on top. A lot of people think that's more like the most fun part of the process. So maybe then it's also easier to do like a collaborative, you work like an hour or 2 hours just overtime because you actually want to get that feature done rather than it being like this weight on your shoulders, like something you need to get done. So it's more about like when you can actually choose to do, to work overtime, it doesn't feel as much as you're like crunching because it's more like you want to add something more.
I think that sometimes there's also added stress as a student because you have there are different layers of pressure on you. It's okay, it's the project you're going to work on, and it's the course you got to deliver on, and you have these different courses, and in some of them the expectations and deliverables are very clear, in others they're much more loose. Sometimes you are graded and judged as a group, sometimes as individuals, even though you are doing a group work. So juggling all of that, as well as being, all the other challenges of being a young student, maybe in a new place, and life and everything. Sure, it is a very great opportunity to explore these things and learn things with less at stake than it would be in a professional setting. But that doesn't mean that it is any less stressful. I try to root out the crunch, the crunchers whenever I can. But yes, I think it's important to hear from people in the industry as well, not just us telling you that, think about scope, think about planning, and communicate, and you can reduce crunch quite a lot. But I think stress comes from many different directions.
I just feel like the students are taking it lightly because like crunch, it's at this point it's kind of a bit of a buzzword, right? They hear it so much from the game industry, but I don't feel like they very often take it seriously for what it is.
I see that also a lot. I hope it gets better, and that's my experience after going through the education and actually having done it more for real and working in more projects with different people. I can't give you any statistics on the attitudes compared to sort of a first year and a third year in our university, but that is my image, that with a little bit more experience, maybe the jokes don't disappear, but I think the actual attitude changes.
Yes, just to add one thing there. We should maybe have made this whole conversation only about crunch and where it comes from and so forth. But it is an important topic, and it's, crunch has been a term for a very long time in the industry. But one thing, going back to the sports team metaphor, I think it is, and I'm going to be, saying the thing you're not supposed to say now, but you have picked an incredibly competitive industry. You have chosen to enter the NHL, and in any artistic work, you're never gonna become crazy successful without hard work. So there's going to be hard work involved. But the problem and what happens with crunch is that crunch is very much a symptom of poor planning. It's not about making the perfect plan. It's the whole process of planning. When you're using, there has been a tendency for a long time that you solve the problem about we're just going to work harder. But there's an end to how much problem you can solve with that. So one, it doesn't even work that well because the baseline is that you have to work hard. So there's not that much more you can put in. And two, that is of course not great for mental health. So next one.
For remote work, motivation tends to go down with workers, like morale and stuff. Do you have any practices for motivating the workers who do remote work?
I don't think that's entirely true though, that it goes down for everyone. I think that's definitely up to the individual, where it really fits some people where they are, inherently motivated by doing the job they have been hired to do. For me, myself, my motivation do go down somewhat when I work only from home, so that's why I choose not to do that. But I don't think I have any suggestions on how to motivate people that are fully remote.
No, we had just open Discord channels where everyone could just pop in, and when they are working remote, so if you feel like you need someone to talk to or someone to maybe get some motivation from, you can just pop into the Discord and hang around and talk while you work. Not necessarily in the same department or anything, just someone. I think that helped a little bit. And when I work from home, I usually just time slot my full day in the calendar, so I get notifications when I should do stuff, and it kind of helps a little.
I think just trying to include them and make them feel like they're part of the team, even though they are kind of remote is the big one. And one thing that I try to do is that I would tell them, we would talk about what that person wanted to do and see if there was anything within the process that was something that he could work on for a long time. Because that also meant that since he wasn't part of the constant development within the team where we were talking a lot, he knew that he had one big task and he could kind of take ownership of that and work on that specifically and report directly to me. And that, I think that made him feel like he was achieving a lot on his own. Because when he's not part of the team, he's constantly interacting with each other. I think you need to have something to still make you feel like you're doing and completing something of importance to the project.
I agree, and it's something that you brushed upon as well. And it goes for even if you're not remote, but it's maintaining the feeling of being part of the team. Don't underestimate the online social time as well, playing games online together, having sort of, I'm a bit old school, but I'm a big fan of the team building exercise, or the team building time, where, having every Wednesday we go for ice cream down at Klassmagasinet. Like having something for the team where you can just don't think about work, hang out and feel like you're part of that sports team as well. And you can do that online as well, but it just requires maybe a little bit more planning.
Autonomy and alignment, that's important practices also when you're in the office, but it becomes incredibly important when you're remote first. No one wants to be micromanaged over Zoom. So going a bit to what you said, getting your leadership practice in order, both in terms of how you set goals. If you're down to like measuring super granular tasks, how many hours have you spent on it? I mean, you're doomed. People are not going to thrive with that. And that's horrible practices in the normal office as well. But then maybe the social interaction makes it bearable. But you have to really measure outcome. You have to. I'm obviously blowing my own trumpet now, but you really need to think about what kind of tools you're using, etc., etc. So a lot of these things becomes much more important. One more question?
Sure, thank you. It came up a lot sort of that as a producer, your job is to design the environment for the team, right? And so my question would be, what is your sort of in your minds, what is the core mechanic that sort of needs to be running smoothly and be well implemented by you as a producer in your teams for them to work well? Or maybe in another way to look at it, what is sort of like your master stroke of live action role playing design that you have done in your work where you said this really, I had this problem, I came up with this sort of mechanic with Peter talked this morning about, or in the first talk about getting kids to play and how they changed the mechanics so they created the experience for the players that they wanted, and it wasn't sort of like toxic, but the kids helped each other. And so I'm wondering what is your sort of master stroke of environment or team design? What is one thing where you say like, okay, this really works well for me. In my teams, this is a really important practical mechanic, something that I spend a lot of time obsessing over. That maybe people can take out from here and say, okay, this is a practical thing, and I will try to implement in my team and experiment with.
Yeah, I can. I really love retros, having them like bi-monthly, just to get a temperature check, but also checking with the team what they think we as a team can do better, what we are doing good, but also like if there are room for any improvements that me as a producer can do for the team. It's just a really nice way to, and it's totally anonymous, so they don't have to have their names or anything. And then we discuss those points together on like a Miro board. I think that has helped me a lot to just bring in new ways of production.
I mean, I most work in smaller teams, like 6 to 10 people, and the thing that I always try to strive for is to just have a good team spirit, to make sure that people want to come to the office, or I mean, if it's remotely, and just work together. As if you get to that point where people are just happy and have ambition and they want to do the work, I mean, the other things will kind of fall in place in one way or another. Otherwise, if they don't want it, you will kind of have to force them to do the retros, the daily stand-ups and everything if they don't want to do this together.
And how do you do that? What's the is it like
it's a lot of the social aspect of it in a lot of this. Just, I mean, working with, what's it called? There's a word for this, I'm sure.
It will come to you.
It will come to me. But just the bond between people, work with that. If you see that people have issues in the team with each other, make sure to bring that up and solve the problem instead of just letting it be there and become a bigger problem down the road. So just really manage the team in such a way and solve the problems if they arise.
Yeah. Finding a communication structure that works, whether that is through a certain meeting routine or finding the best like tool or platform that everyone is comfortable using, and managing to getting the team and it might take time to establish that sort of comfortability and team spirit that you feel very comfortable talking to anyone on the team about anything. Those teams, in my experience, they can overcome almost any problem because issues don't fester, they can deal with conflicts immediately, they can move forward so much quicker than teams who are not comfortable communicating with each other. And it's the most important skill maybe you'll ever learn, and you'll never master it. Communication. I mean, it sounds obvious, but it's so hard, and you need to practice it constantly.
Yeah. I mean, besides for these things, I try to do like bi-weekly check-ins with each team member, and I allow them to speak their mind freely. And I usually try to just ask a question quite openly, like, what can I do to make your life or like day better? And that they might suggest everything from like, I want this type of fruit in the cafeteria, or they go like, well, this particular task that I'm working on, I feel unmotivated about it, or they will share something that will give me like an inclination, something to go on. Because I feel like we talk a lot about group facilitation, but also to see the individuals within the group and to actually just know what will allow for them to be their best version of themselves is it's kind of part of their job as well, and to give them the space and time to actually acknowledge that and to encourage that kind of speaking, I think is a valuable tool for me.
I will give a very dry answer, but it's very much production practices. And this is both my own team and the favorite customers. And that is to don't manage tasks, manage flow. So really focus on managing throughput. And that opens a whole box of much, much better and more motivating and collaborative practices in estimation. This is a fantastic topic, and we should talk about this in how we can get this into university. But this is one of the things that the industry is very, very bad at. It's also very, very hard. But the fact that it's very hard doesn't mean that you can't do way better. And that is like, how do you manage, really estimation? How long is this game going to take? And doing a better job at that has massive consequences, both relationship with investors, motivation, when you actually ship, I mean everything. It has a massive effect, but it's also quite hard. This poor gentleman has been waving many times, and I do what I take you on.
Anyway, I think we covered most of the questions and topics that we wanted to answer, but yes, back to Brent, I was really wondering, so you mentioned that sometimes you get locked in a certain type of mindset and you need to get out of this to adjust to the team. But what if you have a team member that really believes in crunch and like hard work, and he's a valuable team member, so you have to adjust with them. But by adjusting, don't you think that reinforces crunch again and again?
That's an interesting question. Okay. So the question is, if you have someone who believes in crunch or another practice that might be, let's say, toxic, how to actually change that?
I'm not sure if he believes in crunch or just like working overtime to get things done. Because like I feel like the crunch culture has kind of been associated with working endless of months, just overtime you're being forced. But if you have individuals within the team who's like, if I work overtime like 1-2 hours per day, I know that I can get more done and I want to do it. I think to encourage someone to do that is not wrong, but also keep an eye out on their well-being, and always be like, I would be extra cautious, but also allow for people to, if they want to work more to get things done, why let them?
I agree in a sense. I mean, you don't have to adapt the entire team after each one individual's work capacity, because you're going to be different people in different teams. You're going to have different motivations, different capacities as well. But a good production structure will allow for each individual to work in their pace. Whether that is taking on more tasks during a sprint, for example, or just I just need 2 days and I will get all of this really heavy programming done. If I'm just not disturbed, I would love that. Then fine, if that works, you can try it out. But I would also I would be very careful. Make sure that take care of yourself and take breaks, and you will see quite quickly if it is sustainable or not, I think.
I mean, if someone is having a behavior that is having a negative impact on the team, or you can see that it's really unhealthy for this person, then you need to sit down and talk with them. that you need to talk with them. But unless you're at that point and and it's just working some overtime, they want to do more. I don't know. I do that myself, and that's my personal choice. No one is telling me to do that. But it's just make sure it's healthy and doesn't impact people in a negative way.
Yeah, and I guess one thing you could also utilize is like a flex bank. So allow for them to like a flex bank of hours. So you're able to like collect a bunch of hours that you can then use to like take time off. Because some people want to work longer days, but then perhaps they have now work so they can be off for a week. If you have a company structure that allows for that, that is one solution to like allowing people to work as much as they want without also maybe overworking themselves.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Like, just make sure they are compensated in a way, either by flexing out time, like having a full day off, or even overtime compensation or something like that, so they are feeling that they are compensated for their overtime.
I think this question is very good. When you asked it, I was thinking, who is this person who wants to crunch? I was like trying to process, like, I was trying to find an example. But yours,
or for example, somebody who is like in Japan, over dedication.
Yeah. So could be one example, but I did, listening to my colleagues here, I was also trying to think about examples, and it's actually more common, but it's it's a devil in disguise, because the situation where this can happen is that you will have, for example, an artist or a programmer, and they will have this attitude that, well, let's just get the thing done, let's not talk so much about what this means, estimation, fleshing out this user story more, what does excellence look like in this particular character we're doing, etc. They will have this attitude like, let's just get things done. And then the question is like, so why does this happen? And very often the reason that happens is that if you actually do that process of putting in the hard work and the many good tools for this, like planning poker, etc., that addresses how uncomfortable it is to come up with estimates, etc., with something we have so much unknown. So very often what this person is doing is that they're optimizing for not having this uncomfortableness. So they're like, oh, damn producer, it's like, why? I don't want to plan, I don't want to talk, let's just get shit done. And then normally these persons are typically massively underestimating. So the thing ends up taking 3 times as long, and then you're crunching and so forth. Now, the bad thing, if you let this happen often, and this person also happens to be good, you get into the whole like brilliant asshole situation, and you can get that to become a culture, and then suddenly you're ending up with a very, very toxic culture. And this is how many students have ended up with a very toxic culture around, because it becomes like a macho thing. The one who works hardest, the longest, is the best one. So it is incredibly dangerous. So the short answer here is that this is why we need good producers. And this is why being a good producer is a leadership question. Because when this happens, you need to identify it for what it is. And actually really like nip this in the bud. And say, no, you have to have integrity. Like, we really have to work this through. And this is why, certain tools like, for example, planning poker can be very useful. So that there's a bit of a method to how you approach it. So I think we ended here with an absolutely brilliant question. Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for staying extra long. I know we're over time.